Passion gets all of the attention. People talk about finding their passion like it's some sort of hidden treasure under a rock somewhere. Purpose is what keeps us going when you're tired, frustrated, or wondering if any of it is even worth it. Helping people make someone laugh, sharing a story, that's the common thread between purpose and passion. What is your passion? What is your purpose? I'm Bob, that's Vipin. Today we're talking about passion versus purpose. We had a good 4th of July yesterday celebrating the 250th anniversary of our great country, and had some family here, which was great. Spent time with everybody. You know, sitting around BSing and talking. That's what, to me, that's what life's all about.
Yeah. And connecting with people. I think that's what BSing essentially does, is connects with people, talking and being human, right? I don't think we can last too long sitting in front of a computer by ourselves. But I think when we connect with people in real life over some food, over some camaraderie, that really works. And I think that, to me, is a human experience. And I got to do that. I actually went to 2 different events yesterday. I don't usually go to a lot of events or parties anymore, but I was invited to 2 different versions. One had the fireworks in the evening. The other one had a view of the water in the afternoon. And I ate lots of desserts, lots of cheesecake and brats with avocado and corn salsa. It was pretty awesome.
See, I'm a brat with sauerkraut and mustard. That's what I like, and raw onion.
Yeah.
I never had avocado or corn salsa on my brat. I'm gonna have to try that. That sounds like it'd be pretty interesting and tasty.
It was tasty. I never had that before either. They didn't have sauerkraut and they didn't have onions. They just had ketchup and mustard, and they had all sorts of amazing things like salmon and other stuff. Their pulled pork. But I love myself a good brat, and only relish I could find was this corn salsa, and it had little chunks of avocado in it. And it was really tasty. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try that. So I was gonna ask, what was your purpose yesterday? Your purpose was to have a good meal, enjoy some family, some friends, and enjoy the celebration of the day.
Yeah. It was really just to relax and be grateful. And I think I went to the gym, saw some friends there. I started out, good day, walked the dog, ate some food because I was hungry. I didn't have dinner the night before as much as I normally do. And then I went to this event. I took a little bit of a nap between like 12:30 and 1:30. Went to the event about 2:30. Saw some good friends, some old friends and some new friends. And then I met a really cool guy, actually, talking about spiritual experiences and all of this stuff. And this guy, Matt, and I really got along really well. And yeah, it was fun. Jill was there and both parties, and it was just a great, fantastic 4th of July. The fireworks in Seattle, they only last 18 minutes, but they blow you away. I mean, they're massive. I recorded the video of some of them. I may post some today on Facebook, but they're pretty amazing.
So, Vipin, what do you feel is the difference between passion and purpose?
So, to me, similar to what you said, passion is what makes you alive. Passion is what gets you excited about life. Something that you're passionate about will immediately give you energy. And purpose, I think, gives you meaning. It gives you the why. Passion is the what you get excited about. And the purpose is the why, to give you sustainable energy over a long period of time. It gives you the motivation to keep going. It's what gives you the drive to make stuff happen with perseverance and things like that. If you don't have a purpose, you're kind of just wandering around and just aimless with your passion. But I think purpose gives us that meaning, the ability. I have a couple of things that I basically, passion, like we said, is the energy. It comes from desire, wanting something, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. And so, but they're not the same thing. People think they're the same thing. Passion gives you the energy to keep going. It's the unconscious desire to love music or to love what you do, but it's the conscious desire. The unconscious is passion, which you just love something, right? It's just, for me, I love tennis when growing up. I still love and watch tennis and was really passionate about that. And then I love technology, the latest and the greatest things. And then purpose is like, how do I use those things to make the world a better place? I built a tennis app 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I wanted to mix that passion of tennis with technology. Now I'm passionate about meditation and chakras and inner alignment and inner wealth map and all of this stuff. So I've written a book about it. And so my purpose is to make the world a better place by giving people insights into how to align their energies, how to align their passion in a sustainable way. And incidentally, I'm writing a chapter on purpose right now. I'm about, I want to say 70% of it done. I got to add some stories to it. But the mantra for this chapter, I think it's chapter 6 or 7, is I act with purpose. And when you act with purpose, there's hardly anything that can get in the way. When you really define your purpose, nothing will stop you. There will be obstacles, there'll be walls, there'll be rocks in the middle of the street that you got to walk around or push aside or whatever. But when you act with purpose, you're going to find this inner confidence, this inner trust in yourself that you're going to find a way to make it happen. And that's what I love about purpose.
Well, it's kind of the difference between forcing and flowing, because flowing would be passion, and you know what I mean, and forcing is kind of the purpose, because you got the purpose, so you're forcing yourself to do it. The passion is kind of the flowing with it, correct?
Passion is kind of the flow, and purpose is like channeling that flow.
Yeah, so kind of the difference between forcing and flowing. At least that's how my little brain sees it anyway.
Yeah. I think I'm just getting stuck at the word force. I don't like to force anything, and I don't think you can force
Right.
flow, right? And I think it's forging, maybe a better word, forging ahead.
Yeah, that's the yeah.
You're
That makes
forging
sense.
ahead. You're going ahead in whatever adventure that you're in. So let me ask you this right now, Bob. We're both 57, and I think you might be 58 already. What's your current passion? What are you passionate about?
You know, it's funny that you would ask that, because my passion changes often. You know, we had talked a couple weeks ago that I bought a trailer, and right now my passion is trying to get that together. Monique and I are working together to do a business together, so we're going to do this. It started off as a mobile bar, and with all the stuff you need to do, we decided we're going to do lemonade instead. So we're going to have an adult lemonade stand, and not adult meaning with alcohol, but we're just going to run a lemonade stand and hopefully make our money back with that. So right now that's my passion of the week, if you will. So I'm passionate about getting that going and working with her and getting something done with that.
Yeah. I think it's not passion of the week. I think it's a passion of the stage or the season in life, right?
Yeah.
It's more than a week. I think you've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, and it's something you've been thinking about for a couple of months. And I think that taking that passion and applying it to a purpose is the purpose now to make a really good lemonade and serve it to people and make a business out of it. That's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And we've got our first gig lined up. We're going to do a gig in September. And so, I mean, we've got a couple of months to perfect everything.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll be busy enough that we're going to be, that we're going to be keeping ourselves busy and making some money and having things work the way that they should. And I'm sure we're going to fall into some pitfalls, because everybody does, but then working through them and stuff, I'm excited actually for it to begin. Another passion I have, Vipin, is this. I mean, I really enjoy our conversation, and I enjoy this part of my business of, talking with you and editing and getting this program from this stage to the stage of being able to listen to it online.
Yeah. No, I love it. And this is kind of why we do it. It's been a passion and a purpose to kind of promote the book for me for the last 2 years. It's also been a great tool to help me grow as a speaker, help me grow to articulate my thoughts in a clear, concise, storytelling sort of a way. And I think, like you said, a lot of our podcasts are getting better and better. And so perfecting that art. And so for me, the purpose really is around getting the message out of hope, of purpose, of trust, acceptance, calm-centered and loving energy, being rational and inspired, being rational and spiritual. It's the combination of the middle path, mindfulness and meditation and chakras and all this stuff that kind of makes up who we are, kind of playing this inner map in our mind. Inner wealth map is what I call it, because the title of the book is Money and Mantras, but it's all about the inner wealth and abundance and how do you get your energy to a level that you want to go after your purpose. And so one of the things that I did is I wrote down a bunch of questions of things about how do I define my purpose? And so most people think they're missing a passion. They have a passion, but they're missing courage to go after that passion and turn it into a
Mm,
purpose. And so
right.
they ask themselves questions like, what if I fail? What do other people think? Am I good enough? Can I really do this? And so people think confidence is what you need before you get started, but actually confidence comes through action, taking step. And that's where purpose comes in. Take the step, go learn it, go make it happen, and then off you go. I have in the book calling it the inner CEO. You're essentially the CEO of your life. You don't have to have all the answers. None of the CEOs have all the answers, but they are resourceful. They find resources to be able to go find the answers that they don't have, but they're the ones that are making the final decision. And in your life, you're accountable for your decisions. And your decisions come, like we've talked many times about, from your beliefs, which are a set of habits and thoughts that you've incorporated into your way of being. And so that's really what it's all about. What do you think is the biggest obstacle to people follow their purpose, before I get started on this?
What do I think it is? I think that the biggest obstacle that most people have is their inability to focus in on something, and people's inability to accept that they're not going to be perfect every time. I believe that we are the biggest obstacle.
What do you think people doubt about their passion? What is it, do you think, what stops them? And they're the biggest obstacles, but like some people say, well, I don't really know what I like. Have you ever heard or encountered anybody who's like, I'm not sure what I want to do? And so
All the time.
all the time.
And I really think that I've had those feelings myself of, you know what? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what I want to be doing? Am I doing the thing that is going to make me happy or is going to give happiness to other people? And there's times that I have that self-doubt myself, Vipin, and I look at it and I'm like, keep forging forward with the things that you're doing, and I honestly think that your purpose will find you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think your purpose does find you. I think that's something that I wrote about in the book. And it's funny that you're spitting it out, which means we're aligned energetically in the same vibrational level. I totally agree. One of the things that is really important is when you're doing something and you lose track of time, that's
Uh-huh.
spending time on your passion slash purpose, right? That's when you're in the flow, like you said. You forge ahead with your flow. That's that zone that we're in. So I think it's finding the activities that give you that presence, that flow when you lose track of time. And then think about like what naturally comes to you. What is something that are you good at? You're good at the gift of gab. You made a career out of being in radio, and now you're in the podcasting world. And so you have that. I have a question for you. What do you think is my gift?
You're good at going with the flow. I would see you as a good teacher. And that's why I think, you writing the book is important to you and your purpose. But I find that you're very knowledgeable. You are very well read. You are able to recall things on a moment's notice, which I think is really cool. That you can pull up books that you had talked about that you had read when you were in high school. There's times I don't remember the shit that happened to me yesterday, Vipin, and here you're bringing back things from, this happened here, and I read this book, and page 37, the second line down, the word that was in there, and that corresponds with this, and I mean, you're able to that mind map thing.
Connect the dots. I can connect the
Yeah, you
dots.
connect the
Like
dots, and
hindsight.
you're also, and what I really like too is that you're a dreamer. There's a lot of people that go through life that are not, and that you've got these dreams, and you put forth the effort to make those dreams come a reality. Where a lot of people will sit on their ass and do nothing when it comes down to, I really want to do this. I want to be an author. I want to have a podcast. I want to quit drinking. I want to do this, that, and the other thing. I want to. Like with you, I want to drive a Cayenne Porsche because I love the cayenne pepper and I want a Porsche. And a lot of people just say, I want to do this, but they don't do anything to do it. Here, you take, you take the bootstraps, you put on your boots, you pull them up, and you forge through, and you make it happen. And that's who Vipin is. To me, that's who you are.
See, exactly, exactly. See, I love when you say that instead of me saying my strength, right? And so that's why I think it's really important, because it's how are you perceived? What do people come to you for? Do people come to you for advice? Do people come to you for mentorship? Do people come for you for energy and positive thoughts, inspiration, things like that? So
Hmm.
that's something to think about for most people. It's like, what are you good at? And what do people come to you for? And then one of the other questions is, what have you always been naturally curious about? So let's ask that of you, and then we'll ask that of me. What have you
Okay,
been
so
naturally curious about?
Honestly, so for me, I'm curious about everything. I mean, there's not a day that I go through and don't pick up my phone a million times and ask Google, why is grass green? What is the reason that that the river runs north and south? Everything. I want to know about everything, why this works, what makes this tick. How did we go from having a computer that's larger than the houses that we live in to having a computer right here in our, in our hand? How do we have the possibility of having every single thing that has ever been written anywhere right here? I'm curious about everything, Vipin. I want to know why. I want to know how. I want to know what can I do to make it better.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you would even ask that. It's just crazy to me that with the world today and what we have, that there are people out there that don't have the dreams and don't have the desires to do things. And I look at like our kids and our kids' kids and our kids' kids, and I'm thinking, what kind of things are even going to be around? And in the 40 years since we've graduated from high school, just think about how the world has changed. And in the 40 years from when our kids graduate from high school, how's the world going to change there? What's going to be, what's going to be that next thing? That's the stuff that I'm curious about. I'm just curious about everything.
Yeah,
How about
that's
you?
awesome.
How do you answer that question?
I want to take this to that same level. I'm curious about God's plans. I'm curious about spirituality. I'm curious about how can I understand the mind of God as it relates to me. I'm very selfish, right? We're all selfish to a certain degree. What is the higher purpose for an individual? And in this case, it's me. What am I supposed to do today? So asking that question of a higher power, higher source, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. That's what I'm most curious about today. And I have these angel cards. I do this I Ching thing. I just want to know, like, am I on the right path? I want to not necessarily, and sometimes there are doubts that I have, sometimes there are things, but I'm curious about that question more than any other question. Am I
Am I on the
understanding?
right path?
Am I
Is that what
not, am I on the right path? Like, what's God's will for me? What's the higher source's will? And what am I supposed to do with that will? And so the way I come across it is, what's the rational world telling me? Technology is a big part of my life. I had one conversation with this guy in the hallway of a dorm in Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and he said, I'm getting an MIS degree. I came here from Iowa State so that I can come and get a degree in MIS. I had no idea what MIS was. MIS stands for Management Information Systems. It's basically a computer degree in the School of Business. I'm like, wow, that sounds interesting. I didn't want to be a computer engineer, but I want to solve business problems. And I think technology is the way to do it. I'm curious that how did I end up in 1991 teaching a class on AI? We've talked about this a couple of months ago. A scenario in God's mind would put me in a class in a senior year in MIS program, and I would select the topic of AI, or that's the topic that found me and this woman partner of mine in this business class.
And here, 35 years later, it's what's part of our lives each and every day.
It's the biggest tool in technology. You got the internet,
Ever.
right? You got the internet.
Yeah.
You got the internet. Then you got the cell phone and the smartphone, and then you got all these apps and all this stuff. And now AI is like turning things upside down. And it's not that it's artificial intelligence that you can ask it a question, but it can ask it to do stuff for you. It can actually do things through information that you never thought you could. You could build applications with it in a matter of hours that would take you years to do. So I'm curious about God and spirituality. There's a guy, famous physicist named Stephen Hawking, and his big mission in life was to understand the mind of God and the universe. That was his big purpose. And he's well known for all of his physicist stuff that he did. I think all of those guys try to understand, like, what is the meaning of life? Now, I don't want to ask that question of myself, what is the meaning of life? But my question comes down to is like, I'm curious, God, I'm curious, spirit or universe, what is it that we're supposed to be doing in this space? And the second thing is, I get curious about what kind of problems do I want to solve? Where do I put my energy? Where do I go in and spend most of my passion around? And what is my purpose? And how do I make the right decisions? And so I get curious about those things. They may be a bit shallow because it's selfish. I'm not as curious about everything like you are, but I can kind of see as a builder, as an entrepreneur, I can see the problems and how to get there. I don't know how. And I have to trust. So I think when you try to follow your purpose, you end up trying to trust a little bit more. And you have to take action without visibility. I think we talked last week or the week before about visibility in a car. You only can see 100 feet, 200 feet out, but maybe on a freeway you can see a lot more. But you trust and you keep going forward. You take action. You're driving down the street. The other thing that is an important question is, I think our purpose is our gift to the world. In understanding that gift, what I resonate with really well is, this is what we talked a lot about, fall, rise, and give when we first started that, is where did you fall? Where did you suffer? And from that suffering, what is the gift that you learned? And that gift that you learn by real experience, real pain, real suffering, if you share that with the world, people are going to listen to you. You can't share something you don't have. But if you have this experience that you've gone through, and you can articulate that you learned something from that experience. For me, it was a huge thing of having success. I learned how to make things successful. And then I also learned how to bring myself up. I felt pretty hard economically, financially, right? And so coming back from that suffering and building myself up again, I can help someone persevere and realize and recognize that they can go forward without having to be stuck in fear and self-doubt that things won't come back out. It took me a long time to come back from my financial failure, but you know what? I came back just as strong as I did the first time. And so things take time, but with time and experience, you will get the gift of this experience. You will have a gift that you can share. This suffering and this pain that you went through will turn into a gift. And that gift, when you share that, that's part of your purpose.
Well, we've talked about in the past about being your authentic self. And I mean, that's a lot of what you just basically said is being your true authentic self.
Yeah. And your authentic self is the honesty that you can identify and look at the vulnerabilities in yourself and being okay with it, right? When you're authentic, you're being real. You're letting people know, hey, you know what? I'm not good at eating. I'm not good at being organized. I'm not as structured as I would like to be. Therefore, I work hard at being structured. I am not disciplined. Therefore, I work hard on being disciplined. And so when you can share that, hey, I'm really not good at, as somebody in recovery would say, I've struggled with an addiction, and the addiction has caused me all these problems of financial, relationship, suffering in my purpose, and suffering in my career. All of those things people will listen to because, hey, he's being real and honest. He's not just covering up his BS, right? When you start to cover up your BS, people will hardly ever listen to you. But you're being authentic, when you're being real. I heard from a TED Talk that authenticity is the number one and the highest frequency in the universe. Being real and being honest is the biggest energy that you can send out to the universe.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. When I first started off in talk radio, I had a consultant, and that's exactly what she said: be your true authentic self, because people can read through the BS. And just like you said with the whole BS thing, people can read through that stuff. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, that's my initials, BS. And I made a career out of the initials for sure, you know.
Yeah. The other question comes up for me, and this is a really good question for you to answer for yourself, for your lemonade business, is who do you want to serve? Who's your target audience?
Who's your audience? Interesting.
Somebody and for me, I had to spend weeks trying to understand my audience for my business, right? For me, a big chunk of my audience is professional people who are trying to understand their inner self to find more mindfulness and meaning in their work so they can have a balance of spirituality and rationality. That's one audience. The second audience is a spiritual seeker who feels that they've done enough spiritual work, and how do they get to the rational side? How do they get to that money and the mantras thing together? How do we work in that paradox? So in the intersection of professionals who are seeking meaning and spiritual seekers who are searching for more rational, more money and financial stability, that's kind of my sweet spot. And so it's really important to understand who your audience is for your purpose to give them what they need.
So you have any closing thoughts or any homework that our listeners can do this week?
You know, basically, the biggest question from a purpose standpoint, your passion is what you love to do. We know that, like it's the what. The purpose is the why. But if you spend your time answering this question, the question I'm about to ask, you will probably find the biggest joy, the biggest happiness, the biggest impact in your life, which is, who do you feel called to help? Going back to that target audience thing we just talked about. Who do you want to help? Who's calling you to help them? And it's really your thinking. And more and more likely, you're going to find it's going to be people like yourself. People like yourself are going to understand you better. People that have gone through stuff, people that are going through stuff. This guy said, "Hey, Vipin, it really resonated with me what you said." I was like, weird. I'm 57, you're in your mid-30s, and what I said resonated with you because we all had that similar experience of something. And so, who is the person? Who do you feel called to help? Who's your target audience from a business standpoint? But who do you feel called to? Who do you feel is like the person that you want to help? Focus on that. And if you can find a couple of those people to help out in your day, in your week, in your month, in your year, whatever, helping one person makes a huge difference in our lives. And I'll leave you with this closing thought. Mother Teresa became a saint and had this huge charity. I think somebody said she ended up raising $500 million for her charity. Sisters of Charity, I think is what it's called. She didn't go out to create a world's biggest charity. She went to the poorest neighborhood in the poorest city in one of the poorest countries in Calcutta, India, went to where the lepers were hanging out, and she would do their laundry and wash their faces and wash their feet and wash their hands. She was serving one child, one person at a time. And through that, she became a saint. But so don't think you got to act big and have these grandiose ideas. I struggle with that. I've got this, I want to help millions of people. I want to have a bestseller list book. Yeah, that's all great. But at the end of the day, if you and I can reach 10 people this week or 100 people this week with our message of what's passion is what we're excited about. What's purpose is how and why we do it. Sustainable energy to keep doing it. That makes life a lot more worthwhile. Okay.
And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.